It's New Year's Eve, 1999. As the world celebrates the dawn of a new millennium, a shadow looms over the festivities. Experts warn of planes falling from the sky, banks losing billions overnight, power grids failing, and even nuclear disasters. The culprit? A tiny bug buried deep within the systems that run the modern world, the Y2K bug. It wasn't just fear, it was a legitimate concern. This wasn't a science fiction scenario, it was a crisis, decades in the making. Today, we unravel the story of the Y2K problem, a tale of fear, innovation, and a global effort to save the future. The year 2000 problem, or Y2K bug, stemmed from a seemingly trivial issue. To understand the Y2K problem, we need to journey back to the early days of computing, a time when computers were room-sized machines, and memory wasn't just limited, it was precious. It's the 1960s. A single kilobyte of memory, about the size of one short email, could cost hundreds, even thousands of dollars. For example, in 1970, 1 megabyte of memory cost about $1 million. Compare that to today, where you can buy a terabyte, 1 million megabytes, for less than $100. Every byte mattered. To save the cost on storage, back in the 20th century, computer programmers made a critical decision. A year like 1975 has 4 characters, 1975, and require 4 bytes for storage. But if you shortened it to just 75, you saved 2 characters. That is, by shortening the year to 75, programmers could cut the storage requirement in half, just 2 bytes. That might not sound like much, but multiply it by thousands or millions of records. Suddenly, you're saving significant space, time, and, most importantly, money. For example, a bank managing thousands of accounts could save a substantial amount of storage by using 2-digit years. This was particularly critical in systems using magnetic tape or punch cards, where every character had a tangible cost in terms of physical space and processing power. At the time, this decision made sense. It seemed like the perfect solution. But there was a catch, one that would come back to haunt them decades later. These systems couldn't distinguish between the year 1900 and the year 2000, since the last 2 digits are same, 00. The year 2000 seemed far off, almost unimaginable to the programmers of the 60s and 70s. They were solving a problem for their present, unaware of the potential chaos they were storing for the future. This design choice wasn't limited to a few systems, it became an industry standard. From banking software to government databases, and even embedded chips in industrial machines, the 2-digit year format was ubiquitous. It was efficient, cost-effective, and, at least at the time, seemed harmless. By the 1980s, a few forward-thinking individuals started raising the alarm. One software engineer recalled, "It was obvious to me even then, that the 2-digit year system was a time bomb." But their warnings often fell on deaf ears. After all, 2000 was still decades away. This short-term thinking persisted well into the 1990s. But by then, the world had become far more reliant on technology. As the years passed, and the clock ticked closer to 2000, this efficiency-first approach became a ticking time bomb. The implications were massive. Calculations involving dates could fail anywhere. Planes might fall from the sky, as their navigation systems could fail. Power grids could shut down, plunging cities into darkness. Banks might lose billions, wiping out savings overnight. Hospitals could lose vital patient records. Computer systems all over the world might roll back to 1900, triggering everything from financial errors to infrastructure breakdowns. But let's bring this down to a more personal level. Imagine you're a retiree in 1999. You've spent decades saving for your retirement, and your pension payments are scheduled to begin on January 1, 2000. Now, the system managing your pension relies on a date field that can only store 2 digits for the year. When the clock strikes midnight, the system reads 00 as 1900 instead of 2000. As a result, it flags your account as invalid because, in 1900, you didn't exist. Or think of someone with a fixed-term bank deposit set to mature on January 1, 2000. If the system mistakenly rolls back to 1900, not only could their interest calculations be thrown off, but the entire account could disappear from modern records. Such scenarios weren't just theoretical, they were real fears faced by millions as the clock ticked toward midnight. By the mid-1990s, it was clear that the Y2K problem couldn't be ignored. Governments, corporations, and organizations around the world scrambled to address it. In 1998, the US government declared Y2K a national priority. President Bill Clinton established the Y2K Conversion Council, and by 1999, countries around the world were in full crisis mode. The cost of addressing the bug skyrocketed. In the United States alone, an estimated $100 billion was spent on Y2K remediation. Globally, that figure climbed to over $400 billion. But why was it so costly? Because the issue wasn't isolated to big mainframes or outdated systems. It was everywhere. Embedded chips in elevators, traffic lights, and even coffee machines were at risk. Military systems weren't spared either. The Pentagon scrambled to ensure that the Y2K bug wouldn't accidentally launch missiles or disrupt defense systems. Airlines reassured passengers that their planes wouldn't suddenly lose control mid-flight. And while large corporations poured money into fixes, smaller businesses struggled to keep up. Many feared they wouldn't be compliant in time. Governments launched public awareness campaigns. The UK's Action 2000 initiative urged citizens to prepare for potential disruptions. In the US, President Bill Clinton reassured the public, stating, "We're doing everything we can to fix the problem, but no one can guarantee there won't be glitches." Meanwhile, fears spread like wildfire. People hoarded supplies, withdrew cash, and even purchased backup generators. Financial institutions were particularly vulnerable. Interest rates, mortgage payments, stock trades, all these relied on precise date calculations. One glitch could disrupt billions of dollars. Companies like Citibank, JP Morgan, and HSBC reportedly spent hundreds of millions of dollars updating their systems. The stakes couldn't have been higher. In the face of impending disaster, a group of unsung heroes stepped up, the programmers. These individuals worked tirelessly to rewrite code, update systems, and test fixes. It was a monumental task. Some organizations had to sift through millions of lines of code to find and update every instance of a 2-digit year. Programmers of that time described the situation as, "It's like searching for needles in a haystack, but the haystack is on fire, and you're on a deadline." Some even said, "It's like defusing a bomb, but you don't know how many wires there are, or which ones to cut." The scale of the effort was staggering. Tech giants like IBM and Microsoft allocated massive resources for Y2K compliance. Banks hired entire teams to audit their systems. Countries like India became key players, with their highly skilled programmers helping to fix global systems. And then came the moment of truth. December 31, 1999. Around the world, people held their breath as the clock struck midnight. In New Zealand, the first industrial country to welcome the new millennium, power grids remained stable, planes stayed in the air, banks reported no major issues. As midnight swept across the globe, fears of chaos gave way to cautious relief. By the time the clock struck midnight in New York, it was clear the Y2K disaster had been averted. A few minor glitches surfaced, payment systems misprinted dates, a few power plants faced minor outages, and some small-scale systems showed minor glitches. But as relief turned into reflection, a question lingered: was the Y2K panic justified, or had we overreacted? Critics argued that the crisis was overblown, a media-fueled frenzy that led to unnecessary spending. Some labeled it a manufactured crisis, claiming companies used it as an excuse to sell expensive updates. But defenders countered that the lack of disaster wasn't proof of overreaction, it was proof that the fixes worked. Without the billions spent and the tireless efforts of programmers, the outcome might have been very different. For those who worked tirelessly in the lead-up to 2000, the lack of failures was a triumph, not proof of overreaction. Technology forecaster Paul Sappho famously said, "This really could have screwed up our lives, but a whole bunch of little geeks saved us." So, was Y2K a monumental success, a colossal scam, or a bit of both? The answer lies somewhere in the middle. What it did highlight was our growing dependence on technology and the unforeseen consequences of shortcuts in programming. In the end, Y2K wasn't just about fixing computers. It was a wake-up call. A reminder of our vulnerability to the very systems we rely on. And as technology evolves, so too do the risks. Some experts warn of a Y2K38 problem, looming due to Unix systems' timekeeping limits, and is expected to show up in 2038. The Y2K38 issue arises because Unix time, which counts seconds from January 1, 1970, will exceed its 32-bit storage limit on January 19, 2038. Systems relying on this format could fail catastrophically unless updated. As we march deeper into the 21st century, one question remains: are we prepared for the next big digital crisis? Could a new Y2K be lurking in today's algorithms and AI-driven systems? Also, were you a part of saving the world from Y2K disaster? Let us know in the comments. And remember, history has a way of repeating itself, especially when we don't learn from it. If you enjoyed watching this video, hit the like button and subscribe our channel for more such interesting videos. Thank you for watching.